Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Mourning Brew, with me, your host, Lee Petcher. Be advised that this podcast deals with issues of the passing of a loved one and the dealing with grief. So if these issues are upsetting to you at the moment, please come back to us when you feel ready to do so. Remember, you are not on your own. Otherwise, pour yourself a brew, get comfy, and we'll begin. Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Mourning Brew. I hope you are all well. I hope you all have your brews to hand and you're ready to settle into this week's episode. As I record this, it is November the 22nd, which means December is just around the corner and Christmas will soon be upon us. How do you guys feel about Christmas? For me, it's never been something that I particularly look forward to. I've mentioned this in past episodes, really. This is the time where family arguments would start, unnecessary stress would creep in, saving for presents, saving for food, organising Christmas decorations, going to parties. Never really floated my boat. But when I started work, I decided to set up a savings account and put in £30 a month, especially for this time of year. You know, I had that budget there and then. And slowly throughout the years, children have grown up, so they don't need as much toys anymore. I can just give them money. I've grown apart from some people, and obviously some people have left. And it wasn't until talking to my fiance, really, that I realised I don't have that many Christmas presents to buy this year, which, you know, some might say is a good thing, but it's just one of those gentle reminders that whereas now I'd be looking for presents for my mum and dad, I don't have to do that, which is quite upsetting because Christmas is never about receiving, really. It's all about giving. And I used to love finding these special presents to give to people that I knew they would love. Like, it's not just a generic present. I really took time and thought into what I was getting people. And still now I find presents that I think, oh, my mum would love that. My dad would love that. And then it hits me just a second later that, yeah, they might have loved it, but they're not here to enjoy it. How do you deal with gentle reminders like that? It's also about this time where we start reflecting on the year. Now, 2020 hasn't been the best year, really, has it? It's been quite a struggle for a lot of people. So again, that's just another thing to start thinking about. And I can understand why people get depressed and sad and lonely at this time of year. And if that's you guys, please just reach out. Again, like I say, reach out to me, reach out to the Samaritans, just reach out to whoever. You don't have to go through this alone. And again, today, I saw somebody on Twitter posting that their father had just passed due to COVID. Guys, I don't want this to be one of those kind of podcasts, but please, wear a mask. Follow the rules. Save some lives. Do I think things should have been put in place a lot sooner? Yes. Do I think what we're doing now is good enough? Probably not. But it's a start. And it's the right thing. The right thing is always the right thing. So yeah, you may have to stay at home and not go out to the pub. But if you're saving someone's life, I don't see what the issue is. Last episode, I asked for people to send me questions about anything, about my experiences with grief, what they should expect going through their experiences with grief, literally anything. And I'll be honest, I didn't get that many questions, not enough to make a full episode out of. So I'm going to make that request again right here. If there's anything you want to know, personal, not personal, how to apply for a death certificate, anything, whatever it may be, please just get in contact with me at The Mourning Brew on Twitter and Instagram. That's morning spelt with a U, MOURING, or themourningbrew@gmail.com. Or even my own personal accounts at Lee Petcher, again on Twitter and Instagram. And anything you ask, I'll be open and honest with. I won't shy from anything. I mean, that's how we learn, isn't it? So instead of the questions, I thought I would give you all just a breakdown of some of the lessons I've learned with my dealings of grief. These are things that have come up in the past episodes, maybe the things that I've just thought of since recording the episodes. So I'll jump right in. So lesson number 1, there is no right or wrong way to deal with grief, but there is a healthy and an unhealthy way. You've heard me mention this several times before, guys. You can only do you. You've got to do what you've got to do to get through it. For me, it was when my dad passed, drinking. I needed a drink. I needed to get some sleep in order to function well the next day, in order to be strong for my family. And that was another one. I had to be strong for my family. I didn't cry for years afterwards. I just carried on. No one's going to sit there and tell me I was wrong for doing what I did, because ultimately I got through it and I got my family through it and we came out the other side. But was it healthy? No. But at the time, you just do what you have to do to get through it. It's more of a reaction than a response. So maybe that's what it needs to be. You need to learn to respond to the situation rather than just react. But this leads me on to lesson number 2. It's okay to feel how you feel. There are some days where you'll be happy. There'll be some days where you're just not okay. And it's okay to fluctuate between the two. As you said there are some days, there'll be hours and minutes where you just fluctuate. And it's absolutely fine to do that. There's nothing wrong with you. I remember when my mum passed, I was cracking jokes left, right and centre. And to be fair, these were really close to the bone jokes about death, about losing my mum. And people around me were like, "Ooh, you can't say that," or "It's a bit too soon, isn't it?" But it was a way of me just dealing with it, to laugh, to lighten the mood. And then in the next second, I just want to cry my eyes out. I can be angry 1 second and then just calm the next. I went from super horny 1 minute to not wanting to be touched another. And all these emotions, all these thoughts and feelings are just normal. It's just a boiling point and anything can happen. Just learn to acknowledge what you're feeling when you're feeling it. Say, okay, this is how I feel at this moment, and that's okay. And then in the next moment, okay, this is how I feel, and that's okay. And don't let anybody tell you that you're wrong, because nobody can tell you how you should be feeling. Again, I hated that, "Oh, you must be so sad." Well, no, at the moment, I'm actually all right until you said that. Now I'm feeling sad. So thank you for that. Don't be dictated to by anyone. And don't think that because you're not sad or mourning at that particular moment that it hasn't affected you. It has. Of course it has. Don't think that because you're not crying every second that you didn't love this person. No one can tell you how you feel. So it's okay to feel exactly what you're feeling right now. One of the important lessons I learned was talk to your loved ones about their lives. This is what I learned in my episode when I was talking about my grandparents and my mum and dad, to be fair. I wish I'd have paid more attention to the stories that they were telling, because there are things now that I wish I could go back on and go, I remember that, and I struggle. But similarly, talk to your loved ones about your life as well. I think this one mainly goes out to parents. Talk to your kids about where you met your husband or your wife, when they were born. Talk about your life before your kids were born, because you had a life before your kids were born. And they want to know about that. I want to know about my dad when he was younger. I want to know about my mum when she was younger. I want to know about my grandma and granddad. And sadly, I can't talk to them about that anymore. And this goes towards the funeral planning as well slightly, because when you do pass, someone has to talk to either the vicar or the civil celebrant so that they've got some knowledge of who you were, so that they can talk about your life to the crowd that's there. And if you've not passed on those stories, then those stories die with you. Memories are one of the only things to remain. Memories and photos, which brings me on to my next point. Take photos and videos, particularly videos of your loved ones whilst you still can. I struggled finding photos of me and Clint. I found one, and since then I found, well, not particularly photos, but some home videos that my dad took of the school plays that we were in and the band that we were in. And I managed to capture some stills from there. But that's not enough. I mean, we were friends for years and they're the only photos I've got. And it's made me think about the other friends that I have in my life now. I don't have many photos of them. And what I've learned from doing this podcast is that I'm going to make an effort, a real effort to get some photos with these people, the people who mean most to me in my life. Because I want them. I want to sit back when I'm older and go, do you remember that day? I want them to have photos of me and go, yeah, I remember him, he was a good lad. I want to show my kids the people who meant something to me in my life. So take plenty of photos and plenty of videos. And again, on the flip side of that, And this one, I'm targeting mothers because I've said this before. Be in the photos and the videos. My mum, as I've said, would do anything not to be in the videos. She would stand behind my dad, or she would be the one holding the camera. So there's plenty of photos of me and my dad, but hardly of me and my mum. Yes, it's embarrassing, can be awkward. No, you may not look the best that you've ever looked, and that is absolutely fine. Remember, your kids, your loved ones see you not perfect 90% of the time. Very, very occasionally do we do ourselves up to the nines and go out looking our best. Yeah, we see you with the messy hair. We see you in your pajamas. That's how we remember you. So please take photos like that. As I said, memories are one of the few things that get left behind. This brings me on to my next lesson. You will remember the bad times as well as the good. And this is okay. It's fine to remember the bad times. It doesn't mean you're dishonouring the dead. I had that a few times is, oh, don't think about the bad times. Oh, that's just putting them in a bad light. Let's just remember the good times. I'm saying, fuck that. Seriously, nobody on this earth is or was perfect. So it's fine to remember the bad times. In fact, sometimes you need to remember the bad times so you can just remember how good the good times were. Don't dwell on the bad times. Don't get so worked up over the bad times. But that's the same in life. I bet in your lifetime you've said, oh, I wish I could forget that. But you can't. And those memories will pop up from time to time. But it doesn't make you feel any worse about yourself, or at least I hope it doesn't, because the bad times that you've gone through are what make you who you are today. The next lesson comes from the podcast I did about my friend Clint, and that is don't take the time you have with your loved ones for granted. Don't put off tomorrow what you can do today, because tomorrow may never come. As I say, Clint was the same age as me, so when he passed it was a shock because I thought we had time. I thought we had forever to catch up, and there were times he'd message me on Facebook or just message me and say, come on, Petch, what about that game of rugby? Or let's meet up for a drink, let's have a catch up. And there was always an excuse. Oh, I don't have any rugby boots. Oh, I've not played in so long. Oh, I'm not drinking. Oh, I'm not in Bradford. The list of excuses could go on and on. But God, do I wish I'd have just taken him up. He wanted to start a band. And again, excuses after excuses, I wouldn't do it, but I could have gone around with the guitar, we could have had a jam. He'd have been happy with that. So you may think that, oh, I can do that tomorrow. Oh, I can do that next week. Well, if that's the case, then make a plan to do it tomorrow. Make a plan to do it next week, and then you've got something to look forward to. Time is precious. Time is worth more than anything in this life. And what you do with that reflects on you. So when you're reflecting back on your life, can you sit there and go, what I did with my time was perfect. I didn't waste a second of it. I'm so glad I watched that program. I'm so glad I made myself available for that meeting that never happened just in case. Or will you sit there going, I wish I'd have caught up with him one more time, because I know which one I'm thinking of right now. This next one is more of a practical one for people. And this is one that I learned during my mum's death and after my dad's death, really. And it's to have a plan in place for when you pass. Like I said, my dad left us with nothing, no plan really either, no money. So luckily, my mum got like a widow's allowance, which helped her massively. But when my mum passed, she didn't have any life insurance or anything. She had no money to leave me to help pay for her funeral or anything. And again, funerals aren't cheap. So if I hadn't have had that money saved up already, I would have been, well, I don't know what I would have done. I'd have got it somewhere, maybe taken out a loan or something, but you can stop all that stress from happening right now just by getting some life insurance. It doesn't have to cost a bomb. You don't need to take that much out if you don't want to. Have enough just to cover your funeral expenses. Get a funeral plan in place. But I guarantee you, the more that you do and the more that you plan, the easier it'll be on the people that you're leaving behind. The next lesson is you really do know who your friends and family are in times of grief. I knew who was there for me when my dad passed. I knew who was there for me when my mum passed. Equally, I knew who wasn't there for me. And who wasn't there for me was family. Not all my family. I'm not saying all of my family, but certain members of my family weren't there. And it's okay to cut these people out of your life. There's such a toxic trait going around on the internet where people say, family's worth everything. Blood is thicker than water. If you've got your family, you're richer than a lot of people. Just because they're your family doesn't mean you owe them anything. Likewise, they owe you nothing. Now, if you're a close family, fair play. I think that's amazing. I would love, when I start a family, for my family to be a close family. But there's no guarantees on that. But to have brothers and sisters just do the kinds of things that they did to me, that's not family. To have my best friend do the kinds of things that he did for me, that's family. So it's okay to cut toxic people out of your life, regardless who they are. At the end of the day, you've got to look after yourself. Which brings me on to my next lesson. Put yourself first, in whatever situation that is. If you're the one that has lost a partner or a parent, then obviously a lot of the emphasis is going to be on you. But if you're someone who's lost a friend and you want to be there for their family, make sure that you're all right first, because you're still grieving. I've had this recently. Somebody contacted me on Facebook about this. This person had lost her friend, but wanted to be there for her friend's husband, who she'd only met a couple of times. And it's like, you've only met him a couple of times. He's got friends and family that he can turn to if he wants to. Don't forget, you are still grieving as well. There's that analogy about a plane crash, and when the masks come down, you have to put your mask on first before you help those around you or children. And it's so true. You can't help anybody else if your battery is on empty. Seriously, you're no good to anyone. Make sure you're all right by doing whatever it is that you have to do. Listen to lessons 1 and 2. And if that means cutting people out of your life, cut them out. And a side note to that, seek out therapy and counselling, man. I wish I'd have gone a lot sooner. I did in the end, which again ties us back into lesson number 1, healthy and unhealthy ways of dealing with it. The healthy way was for me to get counselling and speak about my emotions, which is why I can do this now. Let's end the stigma that therapy and counselling is bad, especially for men. It's okay to have emotions. It's okay to talk. You don't have to be strong. Or better yet, having emotions and talking about your feelings doesn't make you weak. I think that's a more healthy way of saying that. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger. It's like saying going to the gym and picking up a heavy piece of metal. That makes you weak because you can't pick it up. Well, no, you keep trying, you keep lifting this heavy piece of metal until you can, until it becomes slightly easier. That's you getting stronger. It's the same with your mental health. The more you talk, the more you release your emotions, the stronger you're going to get, the more of a handle on it you're going to have. If you're helping someone through grief, please don't say sorry for your loss or any of the other cliched responses. They're not helpful. They're self-serving, there to try and make you feel better. Oh, well, I've done that. I've played my part. Yeah, for the person grieving, it's nice to know people are there, but it's more helpful if they offer something more than that. Ask them how they're doing. But in the same breath, don't ask unless you want to know the answer. Because it can be uncomfortable, it can lead to an awkward kind of conversation. But you asked. So be there, be ready to talk about it. Because I've had people ask in the past, and then I want to talk about it, and they're like, you can tell they're kind of standoffish. It's like they're saying, oh, I only ask to be polite. Only ask if you're willing to have that conversation. And please, don't let the person who is in mourning counsel you. Deal with your own shit first. The next lesson is one that I think everyone needs to take heed of, and it's that grief and mourning isn't a sprint or a destination. There will be days where you feel like you're moving on, and then there'll be days where you feel like you're right back at the start, and you'll feel like you've not made any progress whatsoever. And that's okay. People talk about these stages of grief and that you're meant to go through them one at a time. And life is never a straight road. It's like a roller coaster of emotions, and that is a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, because you will feel all these feelings of grief at different times and at different stages. You'll feel 2 at one stage, 1 at another, and there's nothing really that you can do about that. Again, going back to one of the first lessons, is just feel how you feel and acknowledge how you feel. But like I said, it's not a destination either. There's not an end result. It's not a, once you get to this point, that's it. It's over. Because it never is. Speak to someone who you might know who lost their parents at a very young age. They'll tell you they still miss them. they'll tell you they still cry over them. Things will never be the same again. But you will be okay from time to time. And that feeling of okayness will last longer. And you will feel happy. And you will move on with your life. And then the feelings of guilt may start dripping in. Is that, oh, I've not thought about this person for such a long time. I'm such a terrible person. How can I have forgotten them? Or you'll forget their voice. You'll forget their smell. You'll forget their handwriting. You'll forget these insignificant little things. And then you'll start to feel bad again. And then you can go straight back to the beginning of the process. And that's what happens. And that's what I mean about it never being over. But the hard stuff will be. And you'll know that you've come through it once, so you can go through it again. There'll be times where you feel like all you want to do is cry and cry and cry, and that you will never stop crying. But studies show that the average person cries, full-on cries, between 5 and 8 minutes at a time. So even though that time might seem like forever, more often than not, it stops. And that's because you're tired. Crying takes up a lot of energy. And that's kind of comforting in a way. The fact that you know that you're just going to cry for 8 minutes and then you'll be all right. Well, not all right, but you'll be too tired to cry. And then you'll want to do something else to cheer you up. And on that, the last lesson that I've got for you guys is that you're on your own clock, no one else's. So just because your brother is feeling better a lot faster than you are, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Or because your sister is still grieving even though you feel like you're past that stage, doesn't mean you loved your parents any less. And I'm only saying that as like an example. You're on your own clock. Everybody will deal with these things in their own unique way. But the important thing is, don't rush your recovery. Don't want to be better straight away. Because speaking from experience, it will come back and it will bite you on your ass. And everything that you've been holding in for so long will just erupt out of you. So deal with it now. Go through it. Feel the feelings that you have to feel. Speak to people that you have to speak to. And like I said, life will never be the same that it was before you've lost these people. But there is life after grief. And it may not be a life that you necessarily want, but it's there to be enjoyed. There is a lot of negativity around this subject, and it's easy for people just to brush past that and say, look for the positives. Because there are days you just don't want to look for the positives. There are days when it is just shit. But there are days when you don't think about it, or not as much, and life carries on. And there's always good things in life to look out for. You just got to know where to look. Well, anyway, guys, that's the lessons that I've learned through my experiences with grief. I hope you found them useful. Please let me know on Instagram or Twitter which ones you found most useful, if there's any you agree with, any you disagree with, anything that I've missed. And as always, I'm looking for questions, so hopefully next episode can be a question and answer one. And I look forward to speaking to you again on episode 7. So for now, guys, I have been Lee Petcher, and this has been the Mourning Brew, putting you back in the centre of mourning.